Hello, everybody. It is Thursday night. It is 8 o'clock, and it is time once more for Content and Cocktails. I said I wouldn't do this anymore, but I tried not doing it for about half a year, and I didn't really like it. And so what's happened is I had a bit of a rest, and I've come back stronger than ever, more powerful. And I am back to doing something I really enjoy, and back to feeling like it feels fresh again. There are a few changes with this, as since I did this last, I've now given up drink. So Content and Cocktails is now Content and Mocktails. So I will be getting my head around and my lips around the whole world of kind of non-alcoholic cocktails. Now, this is good evening, Ruth. How are you doing? This is kind of a obviously not a new area for me in terms of cocktail making, but I think they will certainly provide me with a gustatory adventure. Mike Boss says, and it's lovely to see you, Mike, here. Will they still be a dodgy bag? Almost certainly, Mike. Well, you know what I'm thinking of doing? I am thinking of writing my own version of 100 cocktails, but it will be 100 non-alcoholic cocktails. And this will be a sort of tribute to Bernard, but with kind of slightly bizarre commentaries included. But I thought I would, as I go through this process, I will sort of record the best ones. And if after a year of doing this, because I feel like doing this properly again, if after a year of doing this, I have come up with a sort of a list of the 100 greatest hits, I think I might put it together into a little book. I will style myself Bernard and kind of get into it. Is the book here? I don't think it is, actually. I think it's in the kitchen. For those of you who are new to this whole Content and Cocktails malarkey, this all started out sort of during the well, actually just before the pandemic, but it really sort of kind of came into its own during that period. And I would sort of go live every week, and I would mix myself a drink, and I would regale you with marketing. I was going to say wisdom, but possibly content creation wisdom, and you would get to enjoy a cocktail along with me if you wanted to. And normally what would happen is I'd have a slightly larger measure than is strictly sensible, and it would be very pleasant. And I missed it. And I think what happened last year is I sort of, and if I'm honest, probably towards the end of 2022, I sort of lost my Content and Cocktails mojo. Yes, Mike, absolutely. Progressively getting more tipsy. That's what I was attempting to say in a delicate way, but it's true. The fun, not the fun had gone out of it, but I think the kind of the pleasure had not necessarily. I've been round Bernard twice, and so the kind of the novelty had worn off. And whilst I loved turning up, it was time for a break, and take a break I have, and I feel like I'm back again. So yeah, here we are. You can't get rid of me. So what we're going to do today, I went into my cupboard, and because I for a variety of reasons, which we may or may not get into over the course of this live, I've knocked drinking on the head, as well as caffeine, actually, which is way harder. So the drinking I can sort of frankly take or leave, but not being able to have a nice cup of coffee in the morning is is hard. I have got the makings of a non-alcoholic Negroni here. This is a non-alcoholic gin. It's covered in dust, so I'm going to blow the dust off it. And I think I think what we're going to do is we are going to sort of rate. So this is called Clean Gin. Now this has been, I mean, this was bought a while ago, so I think the sort of no and low alcohol sort of drinks world has come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of years, and actually I'm kind of interested to take it, to sort of take the journey into that, because what it used to be with all this sort of non-alcoholic stuff, you know, particularly, oh God, if you remember the beers, when our first child was born, Astrid, I sort of in sympathy didn't drink during kind of you know, those early years, and would occasionally treat myself to a non-alcoholic beer, and they were pretty grim. And I mean, I don't think there were even any of these sort of non-alcoholic kind of replacements of, yeah, as Mike says, Caliber was awful. But now, you know, Lucky Saint, there's, oh God, this is such a proliferation of them, and people are putting the time and effort into creating stuff that's really good. So we're going to go for a non-alcoholic Negroni. We've got this kind of aperitif God, I can't think of the name of the stuff. Whatever the red bitter stuff you put in a Negroni is called. I can't think what it's called. I've got a glass, and we're just going to pour it out here. So equal measures of that. So I'm just going to taste this kind of methadone gin and see what it's. I mean, it's herbal. It's sort of, that's not a great smell, actually. That's a sort of, yeah, that's kind of, it's got a slightly weird silagey smell to it, which is, it might be that it's a little elderly, but that's, yeah, I will be delving into the worlds of kind of gin options, I think, of no alcohol and low alcohol gin options. So we're going to put some of the that in there. This is all right, actually. I mean, it sort of tastes like a slightly bitter Ribena. And then a slice of my only sort of sop to this. I'm going to use an orange bitters, which is technically, you know, is 9%, but I feel like 2 or 3 drops of orange bitters is not going to cause me any trouble. So we'll give this a bit of a stir. You know, it doesn't look too bad. You know what? That is a very drinkable substitute for a Negroni. I mean, it doesn't have the sort of slap around the face that a kind of most sort of gin heavy Negroni has, but in terms of that sort of balance of bitter and sweet, it's very nice, actually. It's not a bad place to start. So I went live earlier today with the intention of starting to really sort of get my sort of visibility levels back up, because I sort of, for a variety of reasons, last year let it slide, and that I made this sort of, so I'm reading a book by a sort of a business writer who I have quite deliberately avoided for quite some time, and I couldn't really tell you why, other than a sort of possible kind of groupthink situation whereby you sort of end up in a world of people who kind of sort of either stay away from a particular sort of type of entrepreneurial kind of expert, or it's sort of deemed to be a bit, sort of, sometimes there's a bit of us and themness about it. And this guy, Russell Brunson, I will say, this is a good book. It's not the world's most elegantly written book, but I was really surprised by the usefulness of the content. I was put off somewhat by the title with expert secrets, and kind of anytime anyone uses the word secrets, I think they're probably using dodgy sales tactics. But his background is in the kind of whole direct. It's sort of genetics, marketing genetics is very sort of direct sales and direct marketing, and he's the guy who created ClickFunnels, but there is a lot of useful stuff in it, and I dismissed his stuff for absolutely no good reason. And I'm very happy to say that I've been plowing my way through his content, and there is just, first of all, a lot of it is very, very familiar. A lot of the stuff that gets taught all over by, and I'm not talking about specific people that I've worked with, by the way, just to be very clear. A lot of the stuff in here is kind of very familiar to that comes out of the mouths of lots of kind of marketing experts, because it's good, it's good, sensible, applicable advice. But what I quite like is the way it all sort of is put together. So one of the chapters that I read was all about sort of the kind of the marketing and visibility side of stuff, and it was a good reminder and a good kick up the arse for me to take my own medicine. I think the reason why he sort of gets dismissed possibly within the world that I kind of sort of have been inhabiting for these last few years is that he's a little bit of a sort of a marketing bro, and whilst that is a somewhat unhelpful pejorative term, it's easy to sort of dismiss sometimes, and I think that's a shame. And I'm glad I've sort of found my way to it, because actually there's a lot of wisdom. So I would strongly recommend having a little look at it. But anyway, that's by the by. But other than to say, that's kind of what I'm reading at the moment. But the purpose of the lives is the daily lives is to really just sort of get that visibility level back up, because I'd sort of dropped off the radar a little bit. And it's time to, 2024, it's time to sort of step back into all of that. Now, you also may have noticed that I've got a few different sort of irons in the fire at the moment. So I have the video side of stuff, which is still sort of broadly under the banner of VideoTrack, and that's my kind of, you would probably call it your traditional video production company. So we create content for businesses. Then we have Podforge, which is the podcasting side of things. So I'm helping a growing number of business owners, entrepreneurs, publish a weekly podcast. We've got some really fascinating podcasts under our belt at the moment, and we are sort of very slowly and very kind of deliberately ramping up the amount of people we're working with, but in a very measured and kind of sustainable way. So we've got VideoTrack, we've got Podforge, and now alongside this is my partnership with Chantel Davison. You may or may not know Chantel. She is a copywriter, somebody who I got to know whilst I was in Lisa Johnson's mastermind. We came out of that and sort of found ourselves kind of with a mastermind shaped sort of hole in our lives, and we kind of decided that we'd form a little kind of mastermind of 2 people. So for last year, from about sort of May onwards, we would have a meeting at the start of the week and a meeting at the end of the week. And the meeting at the start of the week, we would set goals, think about some of the strategic things we wanted to try and achieve, or some of the tactical stuff we wanted to move forward. And then on Friday, we'd get together and go, okay, what was good, what worked, what didn't work, how did that go? And out of that sort of weekly meeting, we sort of we decided that there was some opportunity for us to use because we've both been early adopters of AI. I've been sort of looking at it on and off as it's been developing for the last the last 3 years, really, sort of from kind of seeing people playing about with kind of machine learning stuff, which was producing pretty dodgy results, to that point where generative AI started and large language models started to kind of really come of age, and then seeing the sort of inroads that generative artificial intelligence is making into the sort of video and sort of image creation side of stuff. So we sort of found we had this shared interest and this kind of shared understanding of actually the risks it was presenting to our respective industries. Chantal as a copywriter, myself as a video maker, but also both of us being early adopters. You know, we both embraced it with gusto, which is kind of, there may you know, there's probably some very good reasons for that, but both embraced it with gusto and both found it to be really you know, just a thoroughly exciting thing to be involved with. It sort of gives me the feeling of the kind of the point we're at with AI, and sort of particularly the effect that it's having on the world of business, is that it's at a stage where it's like that late 90s kind of .com period of time where sort of people were playing with it and trying to work out how it's being used and how it fits into the great scheme of things. And that is not only exciting, but it also means there's a lot of opportunity for us, I think, in this kind of space as business owners. And we were finding ways to use it. And so what we did is we thought, well, I wonder if anybody would be interested in learning how we use it. And we sort of we've done some consulting work with larger companies and some SMEs in terms of integration. I was sort of helping people understand about how you might integrate this stuff in at a kind of you know, a managerial level, and sort of and kind of and we were both kind of, and that was you know, somewhat my interest. So, you know, we're talking about sort of what are the, you know, developing company policies for integrating AI systems into a business, and then finding best technological fits for the problems that businesses were facing. And what's been fascinating is we did that was a success. Then off the back of that, we over a few glasses of wine in the summer, after some of the workshops we were running for these companies down in London, we came up with the idea of the AI survival skills mastermind. And so we kind of thought, well, you know, we'll see if anybody wants it. And we had a decent amount of people who came in on the first cohort, and it's been growing ever since. And so we've sort of accidentally created this second business, because we realized pretty quickly that it was going to, you know, potentially be quite a fast growing thing, and it's certainly looking like that way. So there are these three sides to what I'm doing. You know, I've got the AI partnership with Chantal, I've got Podforge and VideoTrack, and they sort of all sit under the banner of kind of me as a I was going to roll my eyes a little bit, as a personal brand, Tom Stanhope. So the idea is that I'm starting to sort of separate out the the kind of persona and the different strands of business. And this is quite an interesting journey. So the idea of the daily lives, to go back to my original point, the idea of the daily lives was to sort of tell that story of that journey this year, candidly and openly, and talk about the challenges, what's working, what isn't, the kind of the bumps along the road, the points where we have to expand and contract, and we will, inevitably we'll find ourselves driving down blind alleys and having to sort of slowly reverse out of them. But I'm doing all of this against the backdrop of a couple of things which are have proved to be quite sort of full on certainly for the last 18 months. So at the moment, until we're looking to move house, we're looking to move to Totnes, because I am doing a round trip of 100 and something miles every day to get the kids to and from school, and it takes a huge chunk of my time out of the day. And that is part of it. So, my juggle of doing all of this. And in fact, I would not have been able to manage things without the additional support of AI tools like, ChatGPT and all the various kind of editing AI bits and pieces that I'm using. These are really interesting times, because it's kind of, I've had to develop systems out of, frankly, desperate need. And that's been fascinating to kind of go, look at it sort of with the eyes of, from the AI, have somebody else look at the things we're creating and go, yeah, actually there's some really interesting stuff going on there. I bet other people would be interested to find out about those as well. So there's the whole sort of logistical practicalities of my day, but also last year I was sort of grappling with coming to terms with some fairly gruesome stuff from my kind of some stuff that required a bit of deep delving into past trauma, and I won't go into the details here, because it's frankly it's a bit of a bummer, to be honest. But as part of that process, I was also going through the process of getting an ADHD diagnosis. Now, you will hello Andy, how you doing? It's lovely to see you. Cheers. It's a non-alcoholic cocktail. So, what was I saying? Oh my god. Yeah. So as part of this backdrop, there is this sort of, last year there was this backdrop of kind of wanting to do some sort of, start to iron out some mental wrinkles from the past, and also I was going through the process of getting an ADHD diagnosis. Now, I know that there's a lot of sort of gnashing of teeth from a certain type of person when you start to say, oh, I'm getting an adult ADHD diagnosis. There is a certain amount of, well, everybody's getting that now, aren't they? And it's like, well, yes, I think there's a lot more people who are doing that sort of research and working out why things haven't quite worked for them. So I think more people are getting this diagnosis process rolling and talking about it, because one, it's more acceptable to actually sort of for us to have these frank conversations about it. But two, I think this kind of entrepreneurial world is a bit of a self-selecting cohort of people who seem, we become business owners and sort of entrepreneurs not because we are a great fit for the workplace. Very often we are often doing it because we feel like a square peg in a round hole, and so for a certain type of person. So I think there's a lot of talk around this subject, because there's a lot of people within this space who are kind of finding out more about themselves and more sort of being more open to talk about it. So I went through this process because I sort of talked about it a little bit before, but I wanted to have a sort of a stupid, really. I wanted to have a piece of paper that go, look, I'm not just, you can stick it up you can stick that in your pipe and smoke it. So I did that, and I was really quite set against the idea of going down the sort of the medication route. I thought, well, if I know, then I can sort of manage. I thought, but as part of the process, and actually in conversations with one of my friends who's a psychiatrist, he said, well, try it. It's not going to like radically change. I had this sort of image in my head of trying something and then just being completely sort of either zombified or completely changed. But it's been a complete sort of revelation in terms of how I feel about the kind of the sort of the day-to-day functioning of my brain, frankly. And it is a remarkably different feeling as I operate now. Although I am currently, the thing I'm taking is like is a 12-hour slow release sort of drug, and it's like from about sort of for the working day, I feel like I have got superpowers. It's crazy. For the first time in my life, I feel like I've got superpowers. It's great. It's wonderful. But then as the evening sort of wears on, I sort of ramp off it, and it's kind of it was quite a sort of it was quite a brutal cliff that I fell off at the end of the day when I first started going on to sort of ramping up onto the full dose. As my body sort of adjusted to it. But now it's kind of like I can feel this sort of, the plane comes back down to earth, and I sort of feel my kind of everything get a lot busier, which is really interesting. So yeah, I've there's this, all the work stuff, and then this backdrop of other things that I've been sort of getting my head around, and the result of all that is that I've sort of come into 2024 feeling like I'm better equipped than I have ever been to get to the place I want to get to. And that is a very nice feeling. And so I will be using Content Cocktails not only to talk about everything content creation, but also to sort of give a weekly roundup of the kind of things that I've been getting up to in the week. And so just as a last thing, I'll give you a bit of a sense of what I've been up to today. So obviously there's been a lot of driving around to ferry children to and from school, which has been good. I get to spend time with the kids, which is lovely. I get to inflict my music on them, and they get to inflict their music on me. So we're all happy. And then I get to listen to a podcast or something on the way back, and it's great. I will not miss the drive, but I try to make the best use of it. So I've got that. I was supposed to have a meeting this morning. That didn't happen. That was absolutely fine. I came back and got on with some editing, and then wrote the brief, and then commissioned the design work. We're finally getting our branding sorted out for AI survival skills, because we've taken a very sort of lean attitude towards getting the company up and running. We sort of wanted to test that it was actually functional as an idea. That was successful. Now we're starting to kind of backfill those parts of the parts of the sort of the business that require a bit more sort of nuanced attention, such as the sort of visual branding and all that kind of stuff. So I did some editing. I did some. I'm putting together some PDFs for the Video Academy cohorts, because last year's Video Academy, I got sort of 2/3 of the way through the course and realized that with all the AI stuff I was using, it was no longer useful to the people who I was delivering the training to, for me to be talking about doing all this stuff in the old way. So I kind of went back and have rewritten everything, and kind of have a nice full course that I've that I'm delivering at the moment to the cohort, which includes all of the AI sort of processes that I'm using. So I was doing some PDFs for that as well. And that was it. And then I went and picked the kids up, came back here, cooked them supper because Una's down in Oxford today. She's been stuck on the train on the way back for a million years. And I'm going to, after this, I'm going to go and just load the dishwasher and then chivvy the children to get them to bed. And that will be that. But it is it's a revelation to be able to sort of just focus and not be fighting for focus. If you have ever had that feeling where you just can't settle in a day or can't get your sort of your brain in gear or get yourself to focus, that's what I can liken it to, but sort of all the time. And you're sort of, you know, you build strategies in order to just get stuff done, but it never feels, you always feel like you're sort of fighting with one hand behind your back. And it, you know, for my working day, I don't have to feel like that anymore. So it's quite wonderful. But anyway, thank you for being here. I am going to perhaps do my research about what alcohol-free content and alcohol-free cocktails I can bring to Content and Cocktails. So if you have any kind of recommendations, things I can try, please shout them out. You know, I know that the internet will be full of these suggestions, so I'm going to do a bit of a trawl, see what I can come up with. But the sort of alcohol-free Negroni has worked well, and you know that's not made me sad. I don't feel sad having this drink. The gin replacement was a bit weird and sort of vegetable-ish in its smell. Sort of, the only thing I can liken it to is silage. I won't be sort of recommending this as a kind of as an option. Thank you, whoever that is, Facebook user. I'm just going to go into AI survivals. Oh, it's Daniela. Thank you, Daniela. So I will be here every week for a sort of a big weekly roundup and an alcohol-free cocktail, and I will be live every day with a sort of rolling view of what the hell I'm up to. So there we go. Thank you for being here with me on this first return to Content and Cocktails. I will see you next week, and enjoy Friday and the weekend. Cheerio.